Hello everyone, I'm Valmore. I'm back this week bringing you another recipe tier video from Heroes Feast. I didn't bring one last week because I had a busy week at work and just couldn't find the time. So to give a bit of a refresher about what I'm doing here, I'm going to be ranking each one of the recipes in my opinion based on exactly how I prepared them from the recipe in the book. But as I've been saying, you should adjust the recipe to your liking so that everything you make is S tier. And an S tier is a dish that I believe you absolutely should make from the cookbook. A tier is one that's still very good and you probably should make. A B tier is a pretty good recipe. C tier is one that definitely needed some work. And with all of them, I'll try to give you an idea of what to do to make those a little better. And then D tier is just a recipe that I didn't enjoy. And so the cuisine today comes from all the other races of D&D. And so here it is, my tier list ranking of the uncommon cuisine from Heroes Feast. Let's get started. So the first recipe from the book today is Arkhan the Cruel's Flame Roasted Halfling Chili. This is one of the first two recipes in the book that talks about using halfling as an ingredient. And I'm going to give this an A. It's a very high A because it's a very good chili. But I'm playing a little bit of favoritism here because I personally make a chili that is very close to the ingredient list that is here, and I just like mine better. But like I said, it's a very good chili. The spice mix for this recipe is very good, and like I said, is one that I've used in my own chili. Cinnamon, allspice, cloves. I know some people don't think those belong in chili, but I would like to say that you should give them a try. I'm also very close to giving it an S because the recipe is from the mind of Joe Manganiello, who is an actor, huge D&D enthusiast, and a fellow Yinzer. But I'm going to stick with A, like I said. It's so similar to the recipe that I make. I use slightly different ratios for my spices, and in reality, that's the big difference. I'll say you should absolutely make it, but I'm going to give it an A because of my personal biases. And coming up next is Orc Bacon. So this is a very simple recipe, but I'm going to give it an S because candied bacon is fantastic. It's sweet and salty and smoky and a little peppery, absolutely worth making. And then coming up next is fire-spiced Abyssal chicken kebabs. So these are another A. They were absolutely fantastic. They were incredibly delicious. They weren't that spicy. The name implies they were going to be incredibly spicy. And the flavor text talks about how tieflings make food so spicy sometimes, other races can't even eat it. Now, I didn't expect it to be that spicy. I did want to enjoy the food. But I felt like it could have been spicier. A simple thing to do would have just been to add some cayenne pepper into the mix. Now, if you don't like things that spicy, the recipe as is was very good. And so I'd say you should absolutely give this one a try. Now, coming up next is Hardbuckler Stew. This is a gnomish lamb stew loaded up with vegetables. And while very similar to the Traveler Stew from the human section, I liked this one better. I'm going to give it an A. It has more vegetables. It's a heartier stew. The broth is a different flavor, more spices as well. And overall, I enjoyed it more. And coming up next is twice-baked Cockatrice wings. And these chicken wings were very good. The method for twice baking them made them so crispy, and the inside was still incredibly juicy. And the only reason I'm giving them an S is that I felt the seasoning on them a little lacking. Might just be as simple as a little bit more salt, but you can absolutely redecorate. You can absolutely reflavor this with whatever seasonings you'd prefer on it. Coming up next is Braised Lamb. This recipe was pretty good. I'm going to give it an A. It was very tasty. The garlic stuffing inside the lamb was delicious. There was a wonderful vermouth sauce on it. I'm not sure about the pearl onions though. I found that the ones that I bought were varying wildly in size. They made for a bit of inconsistent, where some of them were very well cooked all the way through, and other ones were kind of raw in the middle. They were good. The whole thing just seemed a bit odd. So I think maybe you get rid of the pearl onions and you just do some kind of sweet onion when you make the sauce. I think that would change it up very well. Otherwise, yeah, I think this was a pretty good one, and I'll give it an A. And coming up next is Deep Gnome Trillimac pods. So these are baked little mushroom wontons. I found them absolutely delicious. I've said it before, I love mushrooms. This is just mushroom, onion, garlic, cheese. That's all this is. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. I wish they would have stayed together a little differently, but I think the problem with that came from my cupcake pan. I don't think it had the right shape, but like I said, they were delicious, and you should absolutely make those. Coming up next is Surrogate Steaks. Friends, you have it. This is the only D recipe from this entire cookbook. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. That's not completely true. There was a very delicious brandy cream sauce that was put over top of it. But the patty itself was not good. The texture was almost hamburger-like, but it definitely I definitely didn't think it tasted like a hamburger or whatever this Beyond Beef is supposed to taste like. Now, I've seen other people that really enjoyed it, and maybe they just have a better way of prepping this stuff than I do, but I was not a fan. Take the brandy sauce, use it for something else, but the patty, you can skip that. Coming up next is Barovian Butterscotch Pudding. This was absolutely delicious. The butterscotch was incredible. Making butterscotch can be a little finicky because when you're making the caramel, it can go from almost ready to ruined in the blink of an eye. You have to pay close attention. You have to be ready to move with whatever the next step is. And if you don't, you'll be able to tell because burnt caramel is awful. But if you're willing to take the risk and you can get the timing down, it's great. And up next is fried fingers. These were very good. I give them an S. Normally you'd look at these and think they were a very simple chicken finger recipe, but I think the breading is well seasoned. It uses potato chips, a lot of nice spices, and makes for a very wonderful chicken strip. And if you've never made your own at home, this is a great recipe to just take. And then on the side of it, it came with a plum sauce that was very close to a sweet and sour. Probably a little more on the sweet side, but I found it to be absolutely delightful. And now for the final recipe from the Uncommon Cuisine section. Bytopian shepherd's bread. It's really a nice carrot cake with the layer of almonds on top that give it a nice crunch. It's a little sweet but not too much. It's a little dense, and I thought it was absolutely delicious. And after that, it looks like I was quite the fan of the Uncommon Cuisine section. And I think what that is when you go into some of these other sections, like the human and the dwarf, they already had ideas of what kind of cuisine they wanted each of them to be, and so they didn't do a lot of deviation from it. Sure, you can find some creative recipes while staying within certain confines you've already made, but I think with the Uncommon Cuisine, they didn't have any of those confines. They just were able to make 11 unusual recipes. And to me, those kinds of chances turned out well. I hope you enjoyed. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at chef_Valmore. The links will be in the description below. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. Coming back on Monday, I'll have a recipe from another nerdy cookbook put out. And coming back next week for the final section of rankings from the Heroes Feast cookbook.